Welcome back, everybody, to the Degenerate Mentor. Today, I have my buddy, Dr. Mateo Franco. Mateo is a chiropractor in Lexington, Kentucky, and we've been buddies for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. And we talk every other Friday. And so we decided to start recording our talks. I guess sometimes there's some good stuff, and sometimes it's probably just the two of us rambling. But yeah, so here we are. And today, we're going to talk about a couple different things. We always talk about business. And so we're going to talk about debt. We're going to talk about cash flow. And then something that I think is super important is P&Ls, profit and losses. You know, a lot of people look at gross income, and gross income is great. But if you're not making any money, then doing all that work and having a huge number of gross really is, all for naught. So, yeah. Welcome, Mateo.
Yes, thank you for having me on. I know either way, whether it's people hear it or not, it's always good for me, whether we're just talking about life or business. So I appreciate you having me. And I'm very grateful too that we get to do this twice monthly. I know you've been super helpful for me, keeping me sane, but also offering me insights to protect myself from myself and set myself up well for the future. So I appreciate you.
I like that because I know for me, I'm my own worst enemy. Like I do more damage to me than anybody else. And I always have. So to protect me from me, I like that. That's at least we'll try.
Yeah, we'll do our best. I think we've got some similarities too of how we operate, a little edgy. We're just going to be who we are. And I always appreciate that. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have questions. Okay. So the question, we're going on almost 5.5 years in business. So I know talking backstage in the studio too, we're talking about debt and things like that. And so for us, we've produced $1 million, speaking of gross revenue, in that time frame. But what we have to show for it is not a big number. I'll say that. And I think there's a saying that I've heard. It says when money meets experience, experience gets the money and money gets the experience. So I feel like it's just been a very expensive education, but it also sets us up very well later on in life. So what are some things I know for me now is that I also heard, what's his name? Dave Ramsey said, if I can get the guy in the mirror to behave, I can be rich and skinny. And so I like that saying a lot too. So for me, it was learning behaviors. It's not so much a skill set of what to invest into or not to invest into. It was more of a behavior of when to spend money. And for me, I believe early, and maybe you can take this as wide as you want. But for me, what I realized is as soon as I got money, I instantly tried to buy my freedom back, like my time, versus maybe sitting in the trenches a little bit longer, building out so it could be something that's sustained when I moved to the operating position that I wanted to specifically be in.
Yeah, I think it's always difficult to delay gratification. And gratification always doesn't have to be like buying a Lamborghini. Right. I think people, when we say those things, they're like, well, gratification means going out and getting the shiny object stuff. And there is shiny object stuff in business as well, right? Like you said, buying your freedom back. And so there could be software, there could be doing different things, there could be different types of marketing. And I think sometimes we feel like we're investing back in our business. And so it's okay, right? But are we investing back in our business at a time when we should be? Or like you said something earlier, push or pivot, right? It's like, I think a lot of times people are just so much quicker to pivot than they are to push, because pushing can feel like way more work than pivoting. Pivoting, you get to do something new, right? And so whenever anything's new, like a relationship, you meet a girl, it's always awesome in the very beginning, right? In that honeymoon stage, it's like you don't know each other yet. You get to find out each other's quirks. You get to, even if it's just a buddy, like you can figure out what makes that person tick. All that's super exciting. And then when it starts to get hard, it's like, well, relationships are hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, would you just pivot and go find a new relationship? Well, I mean, some people do, right? And so it's like pushing through that. And I think in business, a lot of times we have to push through it. I know like right now in our business, everything has contracted so much, yet I'm spending the most amount of money that I've ever spent on reinvesting in the business when a lot of people are pulling back. And so there's always two different schools of thought. And I always try to play that line between the two. I remember being at an event once and there's this huge real estate coach. His name's Tom Ferry. And he talked about, hey, if you're worried about your expenses, just go make more money. Right? Because in business, money will cure a lot of problems. And so I've always had that train of thought until there was a part where I felt like I couldn't make any more money. Yeah, but what if like hire all these people and they're not producing, and so we're not producing more revenue, but we're spending a bunch of money, and it's like it starts to catch up. And so what I have found lately, just me and my own personal journey, is, I figured out how to try to get my freedom back, which never really happened. Right. I spent money on things, I hired more people. I got systems and processes in place, but I don't know. And I don't think it's scalable, but nothing replaces you.
Right.
Nothing. Like you can find someone that's Mateo-like. They're still not you though.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes it hard and difficult, as I know, because I've been with you on your journey. As you try to remove yourself from the things that really are your money-making activities, you have to replace them with somebody else that's going to do those money-making activities. And like, dude, you're the one with the doc in front of your name. Like there's no getting around that.
Yeah.
Like I could come in and help you, but I can't adjust people.
A couple of things on the thing that I heard too. And this was, I think it was you that said this at one of the events that we did, Tribe. It was, someone said it, but one of the guys in there was talking about getting rid of debt. And someone said, why don't you just 10X your income? Like, is the goal zero? And that was pretty profound for me, just sitting there. I was like, oh yeah, that is like, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And then also just a few points. I just want to highlight this just for, I know for myself and probably for younger people that are listening, is the 10X, that is the goal zero. And then when you're talking about replacing ourselves, I know this is something that you helped me with, is finding the income producing activities. What are those things? And then for me, it's just having a different energy. But if I guess the question I want to ask off of this is inside of your business, do you still do the things that you did when you started, or were you able to hire some of those things, even though they're income producing, and then get to the spot where, as far as the freedom part, where you may not have your freedom, but you're doing the thing that resonates and that you feel more on fire for inside the business?
So in the very beginning, we opened and I did loans. That's what I knew how to do. I didn't know how to lead people. I didn't know how to manage. I was a loan officer that had a couple people underneath me that I was teaching how to do loans. And so as we started to grow, I got out of doing loans and more of recruiting and coaching and training. And so that worked until it didn't. We had some really good years when COVID hit. For our industry, it took off. Like it was the shift that everybody was waiting for, but it didn't go down, it went up. And so we grew really quickly. We had people that were all doing loans, and we were making money, and we changed expenses. We changed the way that we paid people. And then all of a sudden rates went up and things died. Right. And so then I kept trying to add people. Well, if I can add more people, if we have 50 people doing one loan a month, that's 50 loans. If we have 50 people doing a half a loan a month, that's 25 loans. And as we added and added and added, we had people just doing no loans. So we just had more people. Right. And so I had to make a decision after losing money for like a year and a half. Okay, we need to restructure pay, right? They're commission only people. So if we restructure that, even if I restructure it just to the point of what could I adjust it to where we would have broke even? Like, I'm not a greedy guy. What would we have to do this year to break even? Okay, if I would have paid them this per loan, we would have broke even. Great. Well, that's what we're going to do. So that was the first thing I did. So I am the guy that says just 10x your revenue, right? Mm-hmm. But we're out there trying to 10x our revenue, and most revenues are getting minus 10x, right? And so, or divided by 10, whatever you want to say. And so I'm like, okay, well, if I can lower this expense, because a loan officer is technically a cost of goods sold for us, because they were getting 75% of the gross revenue right off the bat. Like it automatically goes to them, which means I'm only left over with 25% now to go into expenses, right? And so I wasn't really even lowering my expenses. I was lowering my cost of goods sold. And so that was the first thing we did. Second thing was like, what if I did loans again? What would that do? Well, it would be now, instead of, lowering it to like a 60-40 split where we're going to get 40% of the revenue. If I do a loan, we get 100% of the revenue. Okay. So now I went back to what I had done before, and I battled with it forever. Like, is it the right thing? If I'm doing that, am I taking away from them? I've been doing this a long time. I'm going to get some business that maybe will take away from their business because of who I am, CEO, president, manager, whatever stupid title you want to give it. And 21 years in our industry in a small town, like, there are people that trust me, whether I was doing those or not. And so I struggled with all that. I'm like, well, it's either not do it and go out of business, which helps nobody. Like, if loans away from a loan officer, is that better than going, by the way, you're going to have to go just work somewhere else, which means I would have to go do loans somewhere else as well, which means I would be taking all the loans away from them. So I struggle with that. And so I went and did that, and it's been working really well. I did hire, someone to do the things that I don't like to do in the loan process. And she's been amazing. So she does all my lead appointment setting, and then she does all the really interaction with the client after we get the loan solidified. And then I do more interaction with the referring partners and the marketing side of actually getting the business. But I can tell you, numbers wise, I haven't figured out the percentage yet, because the way I normally figure out year over year percentage doesn't work when you go from a negative to a positive. Like, if you made 25 grand one year and you made 100 grand the next year, you can just divide and it'll tell you but when it's negative, it doesn't. And so
that's why.
Yeah. So first quarter last year, I think we were negative 7 grand. We're positive 150 first quarter this year. Right. And so that, for me, are huge numbers for me. I know they're not huge numbers for some people, but whatever that percentage is, it's like, well, it's 100% more just to get to zero.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's what another 100 would get us to 70, another 100. So it's like 300% year over year growth in net profit. Like, I don't even fucking care about the gross revenue at that point. Like, we got to make money, which now, because we got to make money, I can take that money and I can go out and create more opportunity, which is what I've done, reinvesting into some stuff, some lead generation stuff that I don't usually do, pay-per-click stuff and things that I know nothing about, but hired somebody that does. Right. And so, and that's a long haul thing too. That's a 6 to 12 month payback before I see anything off of that. We're already seeing, created 150, 160 leads in the first 2 weeks, of which a real estate team for me is converting for us on our behalf, which means I can now give back to a real estate team instead of just taking from them. And I think we've gotten like 4 applications out of it, and one of those will write a contract. So 1 contract a month will pay for the service. And so, but it also gives me the ability to provide some opportunity to loan officers that are doing the things that they're supposed to do. And it is difficult right now. They're out there working twice as much for half the pay. And so I believe my job as a leader is to provide opportunity and to coach and to recruit, right? I feel like those are the 3 things. Like you're the doctor, right? Like, you're going to have to be the one that creates the opportunity for your people to have more people come in, for more patients to see. Like, no matter what, like, it's what you do. And if that means I do loans again, if that means you adjust, then that's what we do until we're to a point where, yeah, I don't really know what that freedom looks like. I thought I did, but I did find for me, what I thought was freedom was just me being complacent. And it just gave me the permission to fuck off, which doesn't, which doesn't help anything grow.
Doesn't help anyone. Yeah.
No. And I think you've realized that too. I think you got to what you thought was going to be your freedom, and then all of a sudden you're just standing there going, wait a minute, what happened?
Right. Well, 1,000%. That's why the story is very relatable. And that's why, like, you've been such a help for me and continue to be, is it's those things. But sometimes when someone tells you something, you don't really value it until it's like the hurt them before they heal them, right? It's like sometimes you have to hurt before you recognize the value of what's being said to you. And I think a couple of things that you said there too that were really good is even talk about the adjustment or going back into loans. I think one of the things for me, and a lot of it usually starts with belief or mindset. And so I like what you said with the coaching part. We'll come back to opportunity. I think what you said is the high value positions or the positions of value is what's going to create more opportunities. So I think that was a very good note. But it was the interesting part, and maybe you can expand on this too. It's like for me to go back to adjusting and like get rid of my entire team and just say like, I'm going to focus on doing this and going from -10 back to 0, then build it into the positives. But the thing for me was transitioning my mindset. It's like, okay, well, if I have this negative mindset or belief of like, this is the adjustment, I want to get away from this or whatever it is, then my question is, or the reframing of my mind that I had to change was, well, what would showing up to the adjustments, what would make that more exciting or something that would be inspiring to do that? And the thing for me that I realized is doing the same thing every day. It is the same thing, but as you evolve as a human being, your ability to communicate, connect, do those things, is the adjusting actually became very different. Not the motion of what I was doing, but the experience of it was very different. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that specifically.
Man, we try to get around it and we try to figure it out. And it's like nothing produces the desired result more than the boring, mundane shit.
Right.
The consistency. Yeah. It's just, we're never going to get where we want to be in with what we want to do. Without the, hi, how are you? Good to see you today. Like, we're the ones that bring the energy, right? Like,
you know what's funny on this?
Like, I'm walking in because I'm hurt. Like, I'm already going to be like, well, probably not me, but a lot of patients. Like, I go to my PT and I'm just like, whoa, what are we working on today? They're like, I don't know, what hurts today? I'm like, everything. They're like, okay. Like, and we banter and we have fun, and it's still a miserable experience while they're doing things to me. And so it's like, you get to make the choice whether that's going to be a fun, energetic visit or not. Right? Not the person walking in, because you don't get to control the person walking in. Plus the person walking in your area should be in pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, yeah, you have to, I think, reframe your mindset of like, no, this is, although like some people might be numbers people are like, well, I really like the back end stuff. Like, I really like the office stuff. Like, great, but that's not your income producing activity.
So one of the things that you helped us on, and the funny thing too is if you pivot enough, you're just doing circles, and that's what I realized. I'm out here just pivoting, circling myself here. But the interesting part with that too is like the people that I've seen that didn't pivot at the same time points that I was pivoting in certain areas, they've stayed consistent, produce very well, and I think it's any industry. But that was the thing that you helped me with when we talked about income producing activities. What I realized for my team of how valuable that was, of like, it's like, hey, we're going to start the income producing activities that we're doing every day. This other stuff will go here, like certain things in the healthcare field. Like if we have to enter a SOAP note, like cool, that's got to be a priority, but it's not income producing. And for me, when we sat down, what I realized is I was investing a lot in the payroll for things that didn't really matter. And it took me sitting down of like actually starting out those income producing activities to do that. And then the other thing,
he owns Impact Theory. He's like a coach speaker guy now, but he used to own Quest, and he sold Quest for, I don't remember, a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And we saw him live once, and he said he was just too dumb to stop, but smart enough to learn from the mistakes. Right. And so like you were saying, like you kept pivoting because you're a smart dude. Like, well, there's got to be a better way. Like this can't be, where the other people are just like, I don't know, I just show up every day and this is what I do. And people come in and I go, and I go do this and I meet more people and I go do a seminar here and a seminar there to bring more people in, and then I see more people, and then like, there's got to be a better way, but I don't know a better way. I'm just going to keep doing this every day over and over and over again. And all of a sudden 5 years go by and their practice is huge. Right. Because it's just, like, how do you make money? By seeing patients.
Mm-hmm.
Period. It doesn't matter if they're walking into an iPad, if they're walking into some cheery person, if the person's following up with them 7 times, if the billing's right, like none of that matters if you're not seeing patients.
Right.
How do you get patients in the door? Right. For you. Like that's, and so I think, I know, because I watched you struggle with it. It's like, well, okay, what if we did this? And what if we did this? And then what if we did this? It's like, okay, what if you just did one thing? Like,
Can't be that simple. Can't be that simple.
it's a long time. It's that old Miner picture of like he stops picking right before the diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's not that you quit; it's just that you pivoted. But pivoting is quitting on whatever you're doing right now. So it is. It's like, well, yeah, but when am I just beating my head against the wall versus?
Yeah, I always say beating my head against the wall, hoping it turns into a door.
Yeah. I mean, I guess depending on what kind of material it is, you could beat it hard enough. But
yeah, and that's one of the things too, is we like to try to, or at least I'll speak for myself, try to think my way out of it, right? It's like I created this scenario by pivoting, and some of those pivots will pay off exponentially because of what I learned in that time frame. But again, coming back to what's producing income, and one of the things that I found for myself and talking to other entrepreneurs too, is sometimes we get so far in the future of what I call theoreticals of like, when we crush it, it's the funniest thing. It's like, when we crush it, then we're going to need a team. We're going to need to frame out automated emails and like all this stuff that's like out here. And I'm like, well, why don't I just get success here, get the feedback from the people that I actually care for, that things that are actually happening in reality, and then I can create the next step. And then I can create the next step.
Yeah, because that's all it is doing the next right thing right. Sometimes it's hard to know what the next right thing is, right? But if you only focus on that next thing, you get to you're always winning in a sense, right? It's like if I win the moment, then I can win the hour, then I can win the afternoon, then I can win the day. Because the result's going to be the result either way.
Right.
And so I like what you said there, because it goes back to mindset. If your intent is there, you will always get a ton of experience out of whatever you do, if you choose to. Right? We can choose to be like, oh, that didn't work. Okay, move on. Or, oh, that didn't work. Okay, as I move on, what didn't work? What could I have done? Like, I love that it's called a hot debrief. It's from Special Forces. It's like, okay, we went in, we had a mission, and when we get back, we automatically do a hot debrief. I'm a Special Forces guy. I'm not a Special Forces guy. But it's like, yeah, what went right? What went wrong? And if we were to do it again, what would we change?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can take every day or every meeting or every moment or every quarter, like, you know what I mean? Half a day, at the end of the day, starting the day, like, and ask yourself those questions and then actually really, truly want to know the answers to them. Like, there's nothing that you can't make better.
Right.
Which is, I think, all we're really trying to do is just make it better.
Mm-hmm. I think some important context around that too is learning not to carry it. I think Jim Rohn said this: carry the past as a school, not a burden. Is that word should? It's like, oh man, if I would have known the stuff that I knew today, I wouldn't have done the stuff that I did 5 years ago, right? Yeah. So it's like not whole. It's the interesting part about business and the mindset of it is, or just life in general.
Yeah, just life.
I like what Hormozi says is he doesn't use the word trauma. He just says things happen. Right? Things happen. This is what happened. This is where I'm going from that position, and getting rid of the story of
and up to that point has got us to exactly where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And if one of those things would have changed, we probably wouldn't be in the same spot. Good or bad, right or wrong, whatever, however you want to look at it. But if you can be in the moment anyway and be like, this is awesome. Like the idea that I get to sit here and talk to you however many miles away and have this great conversation, like everything that I did up to this point led me to right now. And if things would have been differently, I wouldn't be having this conversation.
1,000%.
If I can find merit or if I can find something good in us talking, then everything else that happened was for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that can be hard.
Right.
Or it can't. It's all mindset.
Yeah. And that's why with those seasons too, is like, if I didn't have, like, if we just, like, imagine coming out in business and just everything you did was flawless. Like, it was just flawless. I was like, some of the people, like, I wouldn't be open to receiving help. I would have probably came into the group tribe, met you, some of the other people that not just are great business mentors, but great human mentors. And it's so fascinating to put things in perspective in all seasons, I think.
When I look back over the last, I don't know, 40 years, I have one conclusion. Anything that I ever did that was easy, I do not do anymore. Right? Like if I could start something and I got really good at it and it was super easy, I found a way to either self-sabotage it or just quit doing it or move on to something else. Now that's me, right? Whether I have an issue psychologically or not, that's, that's for therapy, not for podcasting. But, like I was talking to somebody about this, it's like that, the fulfillment. It's not what's next, although it is, but it's because being fulfilled for me is the pursuit of fulfillment, right? And so it's like, it's not just, Greg, why do you always push yourself? It's because I find the most joy in the fulfillment, whether that's helping others, whether that's building a bigger business, whether that's making more money, with all of those things. It's not one, it's all of those things that create and contribute to me feeling fulfilled in those moments. And then I don't know, like if I go eat a bunch of food, I get full, right? But then eventually I get hungry again. And so I have to eat again. Like it's the same thing for me, for my heart and for my brain, right? It's like I can be full of joy in moments. And then that's why for me, happiness is a weird term because maybe my definition of it's just different. And so like when I think of happy, I think of just like, you're just like, woo. And so for me, I am not in pursuit of happiness. I'm just in pursuit of moments of joy that I get to be fulfilled. And then I don't know if I'll be fulfilled forever. Like, I don't know if I get to that age where it's like, okay, there's enough here and I can do whatever I want. And we have those freedoms and like, okay, now go do them. I don't know if I will be satiated in doing them. Or if as I'm traveling around from national park to national park, I still have Starlink and I'm still putting deals together.
Exciting not knowing.
Probably.
Well, awesome. I know you got to get going here, but I appreciate you. I know this is going to continue to just be a great podcast. I always have so much fun on here. I have some notes. Some of my favorite things was dumb enough to keep going, smart enough to learn. I really like that. The hot debrief was a really cool thing too. And I think future topics that we can touch on too is everything that I did that was easy, I don't do anymore. I think we could definitely expand on that for the 40 years. Some examples. And then what I took away from the fulfillment is fulfillment is the pursuit of fulfillment. Is you have the moments along the ways that are your rewards, or what I call significant moments or moments of significance to you. And that's the reward that keeps you pursuing more significant moments.
Yeah, it's all in pursuit of that drip, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, we're a body of chemicals, so
yeah, that's what I say. If you're gonna do drugs, do the good stuff.
And now I just chase them internally. So
yeah, if you're gonna do the drugs, do the good stuff, the homegrown stuff inside the body, the dopamine, the endorphins, all that stuff.
Well, awesome.
Well, thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me on. And then in a couple weeks, we'll just keep alternating. So those of you that are listening, will be on my channel next week. But excited to see where we go from here and who we connect with.
Awesome. Thanks, Mateo.
Thanks, Greg.